Tentacles.
Hairticles.
Tentacles. 4 tickles? 10 tickles? 12 tickles? I think we're live, everyone. If you are watching right now, this is the live recording of the TWIS podcast. But it's a podcast, so that means that the podcast may be different from this live broadcast because there's editing that will probably occur between now and then. But things are going to happen now because we're going to do the show. So let's check our audio really fast. Identity 4 can maybe give us are we good with our levels? Justin, can you say some words?
Some words.
I didn't say sing some words. Say some words. No. And Blair?
Some words.
Hello. Slingshotting spiders for everyone.
Are we equivalent? Are we equivalent? Are we okay? Can we start the goings? Or do I need to adjust audio? Let's do this. Faux show. I'm not hearing anything from anybody in the chat room. I'm not seeing anything from anybody in the chat room.
Identity 4 says you're still quiet.
Oh, all right, I turned it up
get
just
that
a
out of the
little
way
bit.
before the show starts. Woo!
Yeah, get it out of the way, Blair. I bumped it just a slight little hair. I'm always quiet. I don't like being quiet. I don't feel quiet. Okay, let's start this show. I'm having issues today. Just letting you know off the bat, everyone. This is
If you didn't say anything.
I should call this show Kiki's Having Issues.
I mean, you can. It's your show.
I can. Starting in 3, 2. This is TWIS. This Week in Science, episode number 787, recorded on Wednesday, April 12th. No, that was last week. Recorded on Wednesday, August 19th, 2020. How to save a cow. I'm Dr. Kiki, and tonight on TWIS, we will fill your head with spiders, politicians, and fake eyes. But first...
Disclaimer. The following program has content pulled from the previous week's release of scientific stories. The content itself was created by scientists, researchers adept at revealing the secrets of the universe, the stories of planet Earth, the mysteries of life, and the systems by which life manages to survive on a planet spinning around a star, spinning in a galaxy, just one of such galaxies out of billions hurtling through space. And while the significance of human achievements may be somewhat limited in respect to the size of the universe, the expanse of our knowledge need know no limits. On This Week in Science, coming up next.
I've got the kind of mind that can't get enough. I want to learn everything. I want to fill it all up with new discoveries that happen every day of the week. There's only one place to go to find the knowledge I seek. I want to know what's happening. What's happening? What's happening this week in science? What's happening? What's happening? What's happening this week in science?
A good science to you, Kiki and Blair.
And a good science to you too, Justin, Blair, and everyone out there. Welcome to another episode of This Week in Science. We're back. We've got all the science that we could fill in our heads, in our shows. Actually, there's a whole bunch of stories I'm not even going to talk about tonight that are so good. Wow. There's a lot out there, everyone. There's only this time now for us to talk about the science that we did bring. I have stuff about mystery gas. I have another story about, sensing when you're drunk, and a story about breathing. Justin.
Some sound effects coming from Justin right there.
That's the use of getting sober. When you gotta get drunk. Oh, yeah. What were we talking about?
What'd you bring, Justin? Yeah. How's that jet lag?
It's fine. It's really fine. There's no problem at all.
No problem. Okay.
No problems at all. I have got some stories. This is an amazing one. I got a story about regeneration of cartilage in places where we didn't think cartilage could get regenerated by the body. Also, there is a potential, not treatment, mind you, but cure for the common cold sore, as well as, that's a big one. That's a removing latent virus from a body thing. That's going to be fun. And then, there was something else, which is totally, the political speaking over time. Some researchers looked at how our political discourse has changed over the time. And the results probably won't surprise you. Yeah.
Probably not.
Okay,
Good night at 11.
Story.
But there's more news that
And the
won't
show's
surprise
over.
you.
That would be great, though. Every time they did a teaser, there was another anchor who was like off to the side who guessed that story. It's like, well,
I totally know the answer to this one. All right, Blair, what's in the animal corner?
Oh, I have bird songs, baby talk, and of course, slingshotting spiders.
Pew pew, slingshots. What? Spiders have so many tricks up there.
So you go back in
don't have
time
sleeves,
in
but-
Starship Enterprise.
Oh yeah, slingshot around Mars or something.
I don't think the spiders are doing that yet.
No,
maybe
no.
maybe in another galaxy.
Interstellar slingshotting spiders yet.
Not yet. As far as
know
we're
of.
aware.
We know of.
Oh my goodness. We've also got our COVID update this show. We've got so much more in the show. Just get ready. Get ready because we're jumping in right after I remind you that I'm going to do right now that if you're not subscribed to TWIS, you can do that by looking for This Week in Science on YouTube, on Facebook, and in just about every podcast provider that is out there. We're on Spotify, Spreaker, Radio.com, TuneIn, Apple, Google. We're there. So you can just look for us, This Week in Science, or just go to TWIS, TWIS.org, twis.org. All right, let's get to the quick stories. Quick. Take a breath. Just take a breath. Yeah, when you think of breathing, respiration, what's the first thing that you think about?
Your lungs?
COVID-19. Oh, wait.
Gosh. No, the COVID update is a little bit later in the show.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
But yeah, most people think of respiration or breathing as the act of taking a breath, inhaling, exhaling, that it's your lungs, right? Well, it goes so much deeper. And we have, of course, these amazing molecules in our bodies, the oxygen-carrying hemoglobin molecules, that when they grab onto oxygen, that really is the breath, because they hold the oxygen until they can take it to places where it's needed in the body to deliver it to the tissues, to the cells that will use the oxygen in the cellular respiratory processes. So it's really the fundamental first step of breathing is not taking a breath, but that grabbing onto oxygen that hemoglobin does. And when it does grab on to oxygen, it goes from this kind of relaxed state to a tight state. It's like kind of loosey-goosey, and then it gets this domed bulge to it. And you could think of it kind of as the stereotypical image of the red blood cell, where it's like indented in the inside, like one of those weird water frisbees that you might have played with where they're inflatable. And anyway, I'm getting off
like a
story
bowl.
here.
It's like a bowl
kind of
shape.
like a bowl.
Bowl shape.
Yeah, and that bowl could get filled with oxygen, and then it gets kind of bulgy when the oxygen is in it. But the big debate among chemists has been, how does that shift in the shape of the heme take place? Is it through thermal dynamics, that there's actually heat energy in the molecule, that it's either tighter or looser, and so there's more vibration or less vibration? Is that what's going on? Or is it an electron cascade, where electrons, they've got their spin and they spin into each other, transferring their energy down the line? So these researchers in Germany, they have done the first step here. Actually, this is Germany and Japan. They were looking at using the Japan Synchrotron Radiation Research Institute's X-ray free electron laser to produce X-ray emission, and they shot it at these oxygen-carrying heme molecules as they were taking oxygen up. So they got this very clear, very sensitive, high-resolution, like femtosecond picture of the spin state of these molecules, the electrons in the molecule of the heme. And they discovered that no, it has nothing to do with thermal expansion or relaxation. It's electrons spinning around and exciting each other. And that is what allows the hemoglobin to change shape and hold on to oxygen. So it's really, and it's electric transmission within the molecule itself that allows us to breathe. To go like this, because we'd never be able to do that if it weren't for the electrons in the first place.
Thank you, electrons. You do so much.
Thank you, electrons. Yeah, and thank you, technology, for allowing us to be able to create these amazing X-ray pulses. I mean, X-ray lasers, allowing us to look at these not even second by second, femtosecond by femtosecond changes in the shape of the molecule. It's crazy stuff. Anyway, crazy little tiny details. They excite me sometimes. We can look at these things now. It's very, very.
Electrons are very exciting.
Mm-hmm. They are exciting. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. Negative. Tell me about some negative words. Tell me about those politicians.
So this is out of Kansas State University. They analyzed 2 million congressional speeches made by both Republican and Democratic legislators, starting back in 1873, all the way up to 2010. They used computers to analyze those speeches because it's just too much boring reading for even an entire university of students to take on. In the research paper, A Data Science Approach to 138 Years of Congressional Speeches, this was published in the journal Helion. K-State computer scientist students Ethan Tucker, Colton Capps, and computer science associate professor Lior Shamir used text analysis algorithms to analyze these speeches over the years. The research results, this is quoting voice of Shamir, the research results show that more recent speeches use a smaller vocabulary, simpler language, express more positive or negative sentiments, and have more noticeable differences between Democratic and Republican speakers. According to Schmier, that's compared to over time. That's sort of the trend. The algorithm measured different aspects of speeches, vocabulary, reading level, positive, negative sentiments that were being expressed. Based on the analysis, part of what is sort of interesting here is that they found that the sort of becoming more positive and more negative also became more dependent on who the president was. So if Bush was president, the Democrats were very negative, used a lot more negative words in their speeches. Then when Obama was president, it became the Republicans who spoke very negatively in most of their speeches. And the level of the dialogue has been decreasing. So let me see if I can find where it's laying out. But in the 19th century, we tended to have speeches that were around an 8th grade level. And that went up until the peak was in the 1970s, mid 70s. We were at around a 10th grade reading level. Since then, we've gone back down to an 8th grade level in just 1976 to the present. We've just absolutely gone down. One of the things that they think might be responsible for this trend is the fact that people are now, politicians are using media to give their speeches to a base. And they're using simpler words, and they're using this more positive or negative, depending on who's the current administration in the White House. And they're not using these speeches to talk to each other any longer, but using it as a sort of their own infomercial to the base. Another possibility is just people are dumber than they were, 40, 50 years ago, and all language is sort of like showing that.
I think language is different. If I think about it, so first of all, every time I go to Disneyland, I go to the Great Moments with Mr. Lincoln, and I listen to the Lincoln speeches there by the animatronics, and it always astounds me how eloquent and flowery it is. It sounds more like Shakespeare than like a president talking. It's kind of lots of metaphor, big words, flowery language, but also think about like if you ever watched Civil War documentaries, the
letters
those
they wrote
letters
to each
back
other.
home.
Letters, my dearest
Incredible.
Matilda. Yeah. So right. So it's just colloquialism is different. Language is different. It's less formal in general. And
I think that's true. The formality is less. Yeah. And if we look back at, tests that they gave fifth graders or the 8th grade tests for grammar and language comprehension, they're often harder than tests that are given today. I mean, you look back at them and it's like, wow, who knows that? Oh my gosh. But I wouldn't say that people are getting dumber. I would say that I would agree with the media aspect of this, that if you are preparing a speech to be given over television or even the radio, it's very commonly understood that you want to write for somewhere around a 6th grade reading level or reading comprehension level, not because they expect people to be educated at that level, but because people are busy doing other things. They're taking care of their kids. They are having dinner. They are doing other things and not necessarily just sitting and listening to you.
Well, and
so
things
it takes
are
that
boiled
into
down
account.
into little bites more often, right? So you might read the president's speech in the newspaper in its entirety in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and so on. But now it's 2 sentences. That's all you get. So you're not going to use a bunch of flowery language. You're going to get straight to it.
And in the 1800s, it wasn't as much of a as much of a representative government. It was representative in the sense that there were landowners and members of the elite class who were chosen by other members of the elite class. They were chosen by a smaller percentage of the population, and so it was a different segment of the population that was being talked to. That they were trying to convince of certain things.
I don't know that that's absolutely true of the mid 1970s.
Right. Yeah. No. Not 1970s. Everything was the same.
Peak.
That's when we had
peak vocabulary, and it had been going up in that century all the way up. It had been largely positive, generally, the speeches that were given, regardless of Democrat or Republican or who was in the administration. It was only after then it started going into that split of having to say the negative thing or always saying the positive thing, the sort of sycophant versus the resistance situation. Now, again, this ends at 2010. This is that's
their data. That's the data that they analyzed. They didn't.
That's the data that they analyzed. So
they could have analyzed further. What I love seeing, though, is that the last kind of 5 years, it looks as though the Democrat line, where they paralleled each other for the whole time, it looks as though they are diverging in the end of the graph, which I find very interesting.
Oh, yeah. Huh.
I can put that back up on the screen again. But I think it's very interesting that at the very end there seems to be a split and who knows if that continued, who knows how it moved, but modern television, modern news cycles. I mean, there are a lot of things to explain it. I mean, but fascinating.
Yeah. So this is, but I have some sort of I get there's a clarity of message. You can use simple language, and that alone should be okay. But if we all agree to that at all times, and this continues, we just dumb down language that is understood by people because they don't hear it, they won't read it, they won't hear it. Their politicians won't speak it. Their media doesn't speak it. Their entertainment won't speak to it. There anything written won't speak to it, and you will get a continually less articulate population as a result. I don't know if that's really a positive thing.
I mean, this, what was it? The 50s and 60s were the beginning of the big marketing kind of pushes, and I feel like marketing and communications has become a real skill over the last 50 years, 60 years. And that ability to convince people to buy something, to do something, it is very often simple language. Don't confuse people. Don't add a whole bunch of unnecessary details. There are all sorts of little tricks that people who are in marketing and communications understand. So
it's just waiting for that eventual debate of the future. America, good.
No.
America, very good.
Well, I think if I may throw one more thing out
there we go.
I think I think about this downturn is pretty similar to when the Tea Party started happening, right? And I think that one of the main tenets of the Tea Party when they first showed up was like those elitist leftists are talking over your head and they don't think you're good enough, and we're going to tell you the basics. We're gonna be truthful to you. We're not talking, we don't think we're better than you sort of conversation. So it could be
billionaire tycoon funded organizations,
right?
We just understand the price of milk, whatever that is.
I'm not defending it. I see the irony, but I think that is definitely the main tenet that they rose within, and so you could see how that would push the verbiage kind of down.
No. I don't believe that the working class of America is illiterate. I think
I don't either. But that was the rhetoric. That's what I'm saying. Is they're saying like they're trying to flowery up the language and not give you the whole truth. We're gonna give you
wasn't that part of the thing with Bush second getting him into office was he doesn't talk down to you. He's someone you'll want to have a beer with, and there was a big push around that. I don't know.
Somebody who's trying to put food on your family.
Yes, right. That's right. That was nicely
trying to put
done.
Food on families. That's what I'm trying to do.
Very nicely done. All right, Blair.
Yes, that's it, right.
Spiders?
Yes, slingshotting spiders. Did you know those were a thing? If you're
bungee
insect,
jumping.
If you're an insect in the Amazon rainforest of Peru, you might catch yourself being slingshotted at by a spider. This is a study from the researchers at the Georgia Institute of Technology. We've actually known about these Peruvian spiders for a while. They were discovered back in 1932, slingshotting around. But the mechanism behind it, the why of it, the how of it, has still been a question mark. And so the Georgia Institute of Technology sought out to figure out how this worked exactly. So when this spider weaves a new web every night, they create a complex three-dimensional spring. And if you look at natural silk spring, the spring, what it's made out of, carbon nanotubes or other human-made materials have similar power density or energy density. So this is a pretty intense contraption. It's actually more powerful by several orders of magnitude than anything man-made we've ever seen before. And so there's a bunch of questions. How does this web store energy? How does it provide new sources of power for potentially robots? It always comes to that. How can we make our robots more like spiders? I feel like this is always what it comes down to.
Yeah.
And how we can use that on more robust materials. So they make this three-dimensional conical web. There's a tension line at the center. And this little spider is about 1 millimeter long, pulls the tension line with its front legs to stretch the structure, and holds onto the web with its rear legs. Now, if it was just holding this tension, they hold it for hours sometimes, waiting for something to fly by. It would rip their legs off, probably. So there's something else going on. There appears to be some sort of catch that they can then release. So looked at this kinematic study, they saw that it had an acceleration of about 1,300 meters per second squared. That's 100 times the acceleration of a cheetah. It had velocities of 4 meters per second, and subjected the spider that was flying to approximately 130 Gs. So that's more than 10 times what fighter pilots can withstand without blacking out. So they have this spring that creates this ultra fast motion. They can hold the ready to launch spring for hours, and this latch mechanism, it appears to be like basically a hunk of web. And if they release it and they miss their food as something flies by, they can actually pull the tension line back and reset. They don't have to build a whole new web. So they also think they're using an acoustic sensing technique to figure out when something is flying by, because researchers got these spiders to eject by snapping their fingers near them, which is pretty wild. And so they have a little bundle of silk that they have on the tension line. They release the bundle, that's the catch, and then they fly. Both the spider and the web move backwards. Stretching the web actually requires at least 200 dynes, which is a tremendous amount of energy. And so they have a trick to lock their muscles with that latch so it doesn't consume energy while they're kind of poised for attack.
Right.
So,
it would be kind of like a ratchet,
yeah.
Probably a ratchet kind of system where it won't go backwards until you release it.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, these guys are just super powerful, super strong. The silk itself is very strong, and then the methodology of the latch and release is something that is really wild and could potentially be used in man-made things.
Yeah, so spider silk is the thing, and isn't that stronger than steel? So this is like having a
depending
steel
on the
cable.
test you're running, for sure.
Okay, but if this is like a steel cable that you can actually stretch, and it's going to go back to its like, it sounds like it could store quite a bit of energy.
Yeah,
I'm imagining though the uses for this. So yeah, okay, we could figure out how to use this in robots, but I mean, we need to update like that circus sideshow act where people get shot out of cannons.
Yes. Spider slingshot.
Spider slingshot, exactly. Or this is the next extreme sport.
Perfect. Yeah. It's actually, we should have an entire, like X Games, an entire event that is all based on spider feats.
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yes.
Television producers, we have an idea for you. Come talk to us.
Balance, gift wrapping would be one.
How many times the G-force with the pilots?
Oh, I think it was 130.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
Geez.
So people might die.
Maybe.
In the spider
people will
event.
Definitely die from this.
We have to get some waivers signed, for sure.
We don't want anyone to die. Oh, no. All right, I have another story about how can you know when you're drunk? How can you really know? I mean, how do you know when your blood alcohol level is 0.08 and you will go over the intoxication limit? Should you be stopped?
Best way to tell.
Yeah.
If you've had a drink and you think you can drive, you're probably over the limit.
You shouldn't. Yeah, you're probably over the limit. Exactly. Well, people make poor decisions. They decide that they can go and do things they probably shouldn't. And the more they drink, the poorer those decisions usually are. So researchers are trying to figure out how they can use devices that people have around them all the time to be able to help them make better decisions. Smartphones. So a group of researchers from Stanford University and the University of Pittsburgh used accelerometers in the phone, in your smartphone. They attached the phones to people's backs and then had them walk around down a hallway after having drinks. And then they used the accelerometers to try and predict how drunk people were, to try and correlate their movements and what the accelerometers read to actual blood alcohol levels. And they found that they were able to very accurately determine that correlation. So they were able to predict when people were over 0.08 blood alcohol content based on how they were walking at 92% accuracy.
Wow.
So really great
I immediately have a
accuracy.
question as a person that is incapable of walking in a straight line when
Yeah.
sober. Do they have a baseline? Like, do they measure things before the drinking starts?
Yes.
Okay,
They did start with a no drinks baseline, and then at different time points after the drinks. What they found is that there is a very high correlation, a very strong relationship between the side-to-side sway of people's hips and how intoxicated they are. And that can be
Get more
used.
loosey-goosey.
It hits the hip sway. So even though you might not be able to walk in a straight line when you're sober, you probably move differently. And perhaps your hips move differently when you're intoxicated than when you're sober. And that is not necessarily reflective of whether or not you can walk in a straight line.
I notice drunks tend to have a lot of upper body sway. That's not necessary. Like not while walking, but like standing still, there starts to be this sort of like,
Swaying.
constant need to sort of just be in motion, to be tracking what balance means.
Yeah. The goal of this research is to hopefully at some point have an app that you can download onto your phone that will just monitor you walking around while you're at a bar, while you are at a party, and potentially send you a message or a notification when you hit a certain amount of sway.
She's just like, hey, I hope you have a plan to get home because it ain't going to be the car.
It's not going to be the car. Your Uber and Lyft have been cut off. No.
So that's a pretty cool idea.
Uber and Lyft.
That's a pretty cool idea. Although you can get pocket-sized breathalyzers that run on batteries that you can blow into and will tell you.
That also probably don't have as many privacy concerns. I mean, this is trying
it's not
to
sharing
use
the data with anybody but you.
Yeah. And it's not necessarily, you download an app and you have to give all sorts of permissions. It's like, no, I don't need you to have access to all my contacts list to be able to monitor.
But if you sold a phone that not just an app, but just had a built-in breathalyzer, like I don't think the phone manufacturers are thinking far enough ahead. You don't need little kickstands, the little magnet thing. We'll just add a breathalyzer to the back of the thing. People will buy it.
Yep. Yeah, so more research obviously always is necessary, but they're trying to develop a tool that would, an app that could work with your phone so that your phone would be in a purse or a pocket and it could fairly accurately determine whether or not you are over the limit, honey.
I didn't bring the story this week, but they're working on a breathalyzer test that will test for COVID.
Yeah. Well, that's cool.
Can you imagine having that on the phone? Or even better yet, just have like a tiny little fan that's pulling air through the analyzer on the back of the phone case and tells you if it's it's like you've been exposed somewhere here, leave immediately, It's all sorts of cool things. We have this giant technology at the palm of our hand, and it's being used for like games and calendars and stuff. It's kind of.
Yep. Well, like I said, privacy. People like their privacy, but our phones could be used for so many good things. Tell us about another great thing that's happening, though, Justin. Big discovery.
This is researchers at Fred Hutchison, which I assume is a cancer research center and not a person, have used a gene editing approach to remove latent herpes simplex virus 1, also known as the oral herpes, in animal models. The findings showed at least 90% decrease in the latent virus, which is enough researchers expect it will keep the infection from coming back. Now, what is this latent virus? This is virus that has accumulated in cells and then regenerates in those cells, exits again, and reinfects the body. It sort of keeps happening. This is a study that is published August 19th, Nature Communications. Kind of an interesting approach. They use two sets of genetic scissors that targeted and damaged the virus's DNA. They fine-tuned the delivery so it went more specifically to the area of the infected cells, targeted nerve pathways that connect the neck with the face and to reach tissues where the virus lies dormant with the people with this infection. Sort of interesting is that these scissors that came in caused damage to the DNA of the virus, but then that was it. That's all they did. And because they were now recognized as damaged, the body's natural pathways of removing damaged junk took over and flushed out those DNA remnants.
Right, all the bits that are left.
Yeah, all the bits that were left as well as whatever's attached to it also went. So they didn't really have to be targeting like, this is the mechanism that we need to cut that allows it to XYZ later down the road. As soon as they damaged it, the body was like, oh, something's broken here. Let's remove it. So they are also looking at, this is a bigger number than I thought. I need to stop sharing water with people. Two-thirds of the world population under the age of 50 have oral herpes. People over 50, I think, all have it. According to the World Health Organization, the infection primarily causes cold sores and is lifelong. It doesn't go away. You don't get over it. It's virus, not magically going to one day be gone. Oh, well, unless science does something like this, and then magically, miraculously, scientifically, with lots of research dollars. Granted, these scientists, that Fred Hutch, it will be gone.
It'll be gone.
So, based on the success that they've had thus far, they are also looking to pursue a similar strategy to attack herpes simplex 2, which is the genital herpes, which is before AIDS was the biggest risk of the dating scene. Maybe one of them, kind of big deal.
Herpes, yeah, it was a big deal. Mm-hmm. It's forever.
But
yeah,
maybe not.
Wow. And then because that's like, for all the people whose free and carefree lifestyles were ruined in some way by, it's for life. At one time, it's for life.
Well, it's tough too because it's not one that general safe sex practices can prevent, really. So,
yeah.
I think that's the thing that really is a bummer too. If you're otherwise safe, you can still get herpes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because you can get them from a toilet seat. Wait, what are you saying?
No, because just general birth control techniques.
Right. You need to wear
things like that.
You need to wear a condom.
Yes, but you can still, if somebody has a flare up, you can still get it even with a condom.
I did not.
Not as easily though.
Not as easily, but you still can. Yeah. Which is why I think it's always felt like such a bummer to me that like you can follow all of the steps, but if you're not doing that one step where you're asking people to get tested before you engage in activities, then you can still get herpes.
That's the best way.
Which is the one that is until now incurable. It just feels so
It still is.
It's a real big deal.
Incurable.
The only one that they think they've really gotten so far out of this is the oral one. So the cold sores, those little marks there, I guess on the inside, the cheek or the tongue, somewhere in there.
Usually on the lips.
On the lips. Okay. Mm-hmm. Outside on the lips is the. So that one is.
It's nice to see that there's progress happening.
Absolutely.
Eventually, once they get past the animal models, hopefully it'll work in humans and they'll be able to actually have this be a treatment. And oh my goodness, what a huge step forward. Because we've talked about on the show before the fact that like herpes has been with us for almost as long as we've been human. Like even it goes back to, I think it goes back to the apes even. Like the herpes virus is, I mean, it's been on this planet.
Smart. It's smart.
It's a smart, successful virus, but oh my gosh, can we get rid of it?
If you want to be a successful virus or a parasite or anything, attack the things that people use to have sex.
Because those are protected.
They're going to use those. They're going to use those. You know it. So.
Oh, We'll just try and keep COVID away from that. Yeah. Let's talk about some eye spots. Eye spots. So,
What
researchers.
What are you saying? Ice pots? Eye spots?
Eye spots.
I still can't hear. I'll hear the story. I'll catch up.
Eye spots. Eye spots. Like on butterfly wings, how many animals have what look like eyes in
I'm a
their
big predator.
coloration it can potentially help avoid predation. At least that's the hypothesis. That is the working hypothesis to date. A researcher in Africa was looking at farmers with cattle and realizing that their cattle were getting predated and eaten at a fairly high rate. And he said, oh, hey, why don't we try this thing? And he tried it a while back with like 1 cow or 6 cows or something and painting eye spots on their rumps. And it seemed like the eye spots scared the predators away. And so he did a bigger study. And that's what's published now in Nature Communications Biology. Artificial eye spots on cattle reduce predation by large carnivores. He found, and the group of researchers, they got a bunch of ranchers to paint their cattle with eye spots or not with eye spots. And then they looked to see who survived. They found that cattle that had eye spots painted on their rumps were significantly more likely to survive than those that had no eye spots or that had just crosses on their rumps. However, just crosses on the rump did seem to have a little bit of protective ability, which was interesting to them. But really, eye spots, high survival for the cows that had butts with eye spots. Why haven't cows evolved this on their own? I don't know. Probably because humans were involved, and eye spots don't help against the humans. But this could help protect ranchers and their cattle from big cat predation moving forward, and potentially protect those animals as well, because if the cattle are not being predated, then the big cats and big predators, which we know are, these animals are at more and more risk as humans expand their ranges. People aren't going out and hunting them anymore.
Okay, so important question. I know I usually talk about human studies and I turned it into animal stuff, but I'm going to take an animal study and turn it into a human thing. So with COVID and everyone inside way more, going out for a run feels a lot more scary, especially in California, because mountain lions. So I am proposing a new line of running gear for humans that has eye spots on the back.
Yeah, put them on the butt.
Great idea.
Yeah, on the butt, on the shoulders, any of it.
Big eyes. Yes, and
I
big eyes.
It's just confusing. I'm picturing, the 2 lions sitting in the savannah at the end of the day, and one lion's turning to the other. It's like, I'm telling you, Bob, I'm chasing this thing full speed, and it's running backwards, just staring at me the whole time. It was the weirdest thing. I'm used to creeping up behind a thing and, catching them from behind a little bit. This one's just staring me right in the eyes, running backwards.
Those eye spots,
it was the weirdest thing.
They look like lion eyes, specifically.
They look like lion eyes.
They kind of do.
Yeah.
That's pretty clever.
That was the other thing I was wondering, if it was just eyes like on a butterfly. But see, even the butterfly eye spots are supposed to look like great horned owl eyes.
Oh.
Which are the main predator.
Right. Yeah. So they made it specifically look like lion eyes.
They did. And apparently it's very successful. So
turns out people who wear Puma backpacks are less likely to be attacked by mountain lions while jogging.
Well, yeah, eye spots on the back of your Lululemons. It's going to be a thing.
It'll be a huge thing for all those rural runners.
Right. Not even rural anymore. That's what I'm saying. There's mountain lions.
That's right. Actually, everywhere.
Oh, wow.
Oh my goodness, you're right. They're all over.
Well, they're running from the wildfires, maybe too. Oh, jeez.
Oh gosh. And anywhere that people and wildlife collide, there can be issues. But eye spots, they can potentially solve a bunch of problems. If you just tuned in, you're listening to This Week in Science. If you are interested in a TWIS shirt or a mug or face mask or other item of TWIS merchandise, head over to twis.org and click on the Zazzle link. The Zazzle link is where you can find all sorts of products, fun things, and support TWIS. Time for the COVID update.
Code update.
This just in. Hi.
Okay, so cases in the United States are on the decline overall, although several individual states are continuing to experience cases or even increasing spread of cases. Generally, the trend suggests that there should be a reduction in deaths appearing in the data in the next few weeks because deaths lag cases by several weeks. And that would be a welcome change considering the United States has been averaging over 1,000 deaths per day for several weeks now. So it would be nice to see those numbers start to come down. But we've been staying inside. People have been isolating. How are people coping? We've potentially seen and read and heard stories of mental health being a major concern as social isolation goes on and on and on. Researchers at UCLA were especially concerned with the population of older adults who have been diagnosed with anxiety and depression and were concerned about that particular subset of the population that are isolating, having larger or deficits, problems, even further problems with their mental health issues. Anyway, the study that they did, they interviewed a bunch of participants over the age of 60 who were screened for their anxiety and depression, and then and that was before and after the pandemic. And they pretty much determined that, number one, participants were more concerned about the risk of contracting COVID-19 than the risks of isolation. So they were like, I don't want to get sick. I will stay home. I'll do what it takes. So they are maintaining physical distance. Many of them are not feeling socially isolated because they're using virtual technology to connect with people. And this is potentially something they're doing more now than they did before because it's become more widespread generally. A lot of them said that their quality of life was lower, and they worry that with continued isolation that their mental health is going to suffer. And participants were generally upset by the inadequate governmental response to the pandemic. But overall, they found that they were worried about this population, and the population was actually resilient. And that because they had been dealing with depression and anxiety for a period of time before the pandemic occurred, they already had tools in place to be able to deal with mental health issues.
Did you say this is people over 60 specifically?
Yeah.
So they've been through some stuff.
They've been through some stuff.
Resilient bunch.
Yeah.
So
really. It's a little bit of, for right now, positivity in, there are people, we're concerned about people. We want people to be doing okay, and this is a hard time. And it's kind of nice to see that there are people who they're not doing, great, but they are doing fine. They're making it through. So, keep an eye on people, check in with the people that you love, but it's good to have some good news occasionally. Blair, do you wear a face shield when you are interacting with people, or just a face mask?
I wear a face mask, and if I feel like I'm doing something especially risky, lots of FaceTime with lots of people, I will wear goggles.
Oh, yes, because the eyes are a route of infection,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So goggles can be really great. There was a study that was done in Chennai in India where a group of people, healthcare workers, volunteered to stay in a hotel to isolate away from their friends and family and to go out into communities to do social contact tracing with people who had potentially come in contact with people who had COVID-19. And so, of course, many of the people in that population ended up having COVID-19. And initially, when these healthcare workers went out, they were isolated by themselves in hotel rooms. They were chauffeured in vans that had steel plating between the driver and the passenger part of the van to minimize air contact, viral contact.
Messing around.
They were not messing around. And these were public health professionals who knew how to wear masks, who knew how to take care of themselves. They wore masks going into these families' homes, doing their contact tracing. Many of them got sick. So they shut the whole program down. They went back, they retooled, they got more volunteers, and eventually started the program back up again. Only this time, they used clear plastic face masks in addition to the breathing masks, the respiratory masks. And with larger numbers of contact tracers, with larger numbers of people they interacted with, and with larger numbers of COVID-19 positive individuals that they interacted with, nobody got sick.
Wow. So that's a good combo then.
That's really good.
It's amazing. And they don't know what exactly happened to make the change. The only thing that was different in the methodology was the use of these clear plastic visors. They think it potentially stops airflow, that it maybe breaks things up a little bit. It's an additional layer of shielding, but to know that there is some massive additional protection potentially based on that simple change is an exciting development.
There's also other things that just jump out, like, okay, maybe wearing this face shield means people are fidgeting less with their masks because then they would have to be removing a thing to fidget with the thing so maybe there's
lift it up, move it over. Yeah, you can't itch your nose as easily when you've got a plastic
so
face mask in the way.
Let it roll. So fun COVID update. So I just flew on an airplane. Terrifying. Thankfully, the flight was empty enough so that even it wasn't a full flight at all. Everybody got to sit a really decent distance away. Nobody had to sit next to a stranger on this flight. That part was pretty cool. The plane circulates air every 3 minutes, and everybody was, of course, having to wear face masks. And I brought enough to sort of change out during the long flight. Within an hour of landing, I was directed to a white tent. Where I got my free COVID test.
Oh, sure.
24 hours ago.
Because you left the country. You did not come to the United States.
Within the United States.
This is not within the United States.
This is in Denmark. This is to be clear. I got a free COVID test, and results came back within 24 hours. I'm going to take another one in maybe a week. Are
you required to stay where you are in between?
Yes, until I get the result. So the result is clear. I'm going to take another one because they're free, and because if showing up not having had COVID is fine. But I'm not worried about that airplane ride. Like, who knows? That's just the closest confines I've been with a group of people who are strangers since this whole thing began, and for a pretty long period of time. But it's such a day like I couldn't go and get a test in the States and have it with that quick for any dollar amount. So
that's amazing.
The difference
that's the difference. That is the difference.
And this white tent isn't just at the airport. They're apparently all over the city of Copenhagen. And if you have a concern or just want to relieve your stress level or anything, you can go there, get the swab. It was really quick. This was a drive-through. We just drove through. They had the face mask, shields, and stuff going on, and it was a throat. Didn't go at the nose. They did the back of the throat, and then off you go, and you'll get a text message.
So civilized.
Yeah, like why is it that it's just what's going on?
There's not a lot of point in asking why at this point.
How is the disparity this ridiculously different?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Because it was ignored for a long time. But I think one thing that's important about the face shields is it's an and, it's not an or.
Yes, it's an and.
So
It
if you
adds
wear a face
extra
shield,
protection.
you
Yes.
can't say never mind with the mask unless
to do
that
both.
face shield is sealed to your face completely. Like you have your own air system.
Like
Otherwise,
you are an astronaut.
yeah. Otherwise,
or
you
a scuba
still
diver.
need a mask as well.
So I did Blair wear that face buff thing that did so poorly in the test. I wore that above the medical grade mask.
Oh, great. Yeah.
So I still doubled up. I was like, I knew like, okay, this thing it's alone isn't effective. This one is supposed to be the good one, the medical grade. But I put the other one over it just because I could still breathe and more is better.
More is
well,
better.
And it probably kept it from moving around too much and all that kind of stuff.
And you could actually lift it up higher, and then you could work like the blindfold on the flight.
Oh yeah.
And then you can go to sleep on the flight, which is what you always
like that ostrich sleep
I never fall asleep
mask
on a
thing.
I tried, but I can't fall asleep on plane.
There's a question as to whether or not people were protected by regular glasses in this study, and I don't know the answer to that question, but that is one point that the authors to the study did bring up, which is potentially these the plastic face shields provide eye protection. And maybe that is what is adding the difference. They don't, like I said, they don't know, but it could be this additional reducing the infectious routes.
Or just like in that same vein, getting the COVID virus landing somewhere on your face. And then you're out of public and you're thinking, okay, I can take off my face
You're
mask,
not touching your
rub
mask
my
as
eyes,
much.
and now I'm out of public. Now I can touch my face. I wash my hands, I did all that, for 20 seconds under soap. Now I'm like, finally get the mask off. And now there's on your face and you just smeared and smushed it all into
evil, invisible glitter.
Yeah. Oh my goodness, I love that.
And I mean, to that
evil,
point,
invisible
that
glitter.
stuff gets everywhere. I have 2 daughters, and I have glitter, and still in places it shows up places like there hasn't been glitter near this for a year at least, and there's still glitter everywhere.
You're gonna find glitter somewhere in Denmark. It followed you there
for sure. And Lightning Rod in the chat room brings a really good point in the YouTube chat room about if you're not trained in how to use PPE like masks and gloves and glasses, then there's a lot of opportunity for you to
do it wrong.
Take them off wrong, not sanitize properly before you and after you take them off, all that good stuff that where it kind of it doesn't nullify the effect of wearing the stuff, but it definitely can reduce the effectiveness. So knowing how to do all that properly is important.
It's very important. Yeah. But face shields, something to think about. And we know face shields, if you have a 3D printer, some of those parts can be 3D printed. So that's kind of cool too.
Yeah, I love this story too, because I was not, sorry, last time I'll interject. I was not really a believer in these face shield things. Like, so there's a couple of people on the plane who wore them. And every time I've seen them, I'm like, that's just, it's a barrier, but you're breathing around it. Like, I don't really get it. Like, why are people still doing this? I am now have changed my mind completely about them due to this. If I take the flight back, I think I'll have to pick one up.
I think ultimately it's about compounding risks, right? So like we've talked about droplet this whole time, and now there's this more and more we're talking about aerosol, but ultimately it's both. And so if you can cut off the droplet factor completely, your risk factor just plummets. So there's still risk if it's aerosolized, but it's way less if you're taking the droplets out of the factor, which is what the face shield is essentially doing.
If everybody's wearing pants and holding a shower curtain, the chances of getting clean up.
The analogy grows. A JAMA article compared the 1918 flu pandemic to the current COVID-19 pandemic, looking at excess deaths. And it found that aside from modern medicine and health practices that are probably saving lives today, like we have intubation and respirators and all sorts of stuff that weren't really available, and we have lots of things that were not available sanitation-wise in 1918, the two events are highly comparable. And in fact, the current pandemic might actually, if individuals did not receive modern treatment or sufficient treatment, it could have an even higher mortality rate than the 1918 pandemic. So just looking, and this is just looking at data from New York City, which we know had an extreme outbreak early on. But we don't need to talk very deeply about this right now because we're going to be talking with one of the study's authors, Dr. Jeremy Faust, next Wednesday.
Nice.
And he's doing a lot of interesting COVID-19 communications, and I'm very excited to talk with him about this because people have always been like, we don't know, how do we know how bad this pandemic is? And if we look at the 1918 pandemic, it's like, 2 million people died, and how many dead in the United States? 600,000 dead in the United States, like massive numbers. It was huge numbers of deaths, but what is that? How does it really compare to what we're going through right now? And so I think that's going to be, it's very interesting to compare.
Yeah, good point. Lightning rod definitely kill more people than 1917 because there's 10 times more people on the planet now. Yeah, that's a good point. I also point out
death rates. It's like
but I will also point out that there are just as many snake oil salespeople and snake oil cures now as there were then. Like that element, the grifter con artist element of trying to profit during a pandemic with fake cures is the same.
Mm-hmm.
That's the most disappointing part.
Yeah. Final study on convalescent plasma we have talked about previously. There's a new preprint out that is very promising. Some 35,000 people enrolled in this study through the Mayo Clinic. But they didn't have a control group, it was an observational study. So they gave people different amounts of convalescent plasma, so different concentrations, but they didn't actually have a control group. It was not a randomized
Didn't the
study.
FDA just shut down this as a treatment right now?
They didn't shut it down as a treatment. They were looking at giving it emergency use authorization.
Okay.
Which would allow doctors to, it speeds up the ability of doctors to be able to use it as a treatment. But because they didn't have all the data, they have postponed it to actually wait until this study comes out to look at the data from this study and really figure out if they think this study tells them something that they didn't know previously.
Okay.
Yeah, but it's promising. They had significant effects where people who got convalescent plasma, that's plasma from people who have had COVID-19, so it contains antibodies to the SARS-CoV-2 virus, and those antibodies in different concentrations helped people recover more quickly. So people who got higher concentrations of antibodies or even got antibodies compared to no antibodies, they recovered more quickly. It helped there.
Maybe I'm missing something really obvious here, but wouldn't they be able to compare it as a control group to just the people who didn't get convalescent plasma who have COVID?
Right. Yeah, I guess that's fair.
Yeah, but it wasn't randomized, and there are apparently a lot of confounding factors.
Okay, fair enough.
But yes, you are correct in that. But
I feel like we have a pretty big control group, actually.
Well, so we do, but then
not necessarily, yeah.
But you could sort of also then at some point say that then you're taking an average of people with and without natural antibodies that they may have been producing.
Right.
Sure. So who might have been surviving it just fine versus people who are having. But then if you just took this, this seems like there's enough data. This has also been the thing, like with the 5 million cases just in the United States. It's like, how can we not have just mined the data on hand yet to find some of these answers? I totally agree, Blair. It feels like it should be a way to suss it.
But that is with the big data mining perspective is, we can mine on all this data, but are we really getting real answers, or are we just finding patterns that look promising but aren't actually real? Especially, we talk about this with respect to genetics, where they take these massive genetic studies and look at all the mutations to see, is there one that is linked to a certain trait? And it's questionable. You have to have incredibly massive data sets, and you have to really figure out what your confounding factors are.
I have to say, at the beginning of the summer, when I thought I had COVID, I didn't. But when I did, when I was lying in bed with 102-degree fever and I was shivering and I couldn't eat food, the first thing I thought was,
Darn kids.
no, at least I'll get to give some convalescent plasma. That was like the first thing I thought. I was like, if I get through this, I'm giving my plasma.
Well, hopefully you won't get COVID anytime
No.
soon. But you still might be able to. At some point. Who knows?
I'm going to hedge my bets and hope that I won't. But if I do, I'm giving that plasma.
Give it up. If you just tuned in, you are listening to This Week in Science. Hey, I'm wearing a TWIS shirt right now. Do you know how to get this TWIS shirt?
How did you get that shirt?
That
That's
one's
a
from
really good
Patreon,
shirt.
isn't it?
This is a Patreon shirt. Yes, if you become a Patreon supporter, there is one level of support. I believe it's the $25 a month. Might be $15 a month. I don't recall, but there's a level of support in there where you can get a t-shirt. I'll send you a t-shirt. Just like this.
Nice.
It's a nice t-shirt. Head over to twist.org and click that Patreon link if you want a t-shirt. Or if you want us to thank you at the end of the show. I have mystery gas.
Again? Or was that Blair who had it last time? Who had the gas last time?
I think it was Kiki.
Again. Oh, this is 2 weeks ago.
I've
Oh,
got
wow.
so much gas. Oh my gosh. These studies. I do love it. This is out of the Australian National University. Researchers there have been looking at the Milky Way. They've been looking toward the center of the Milky Way. They're trying to...
Sagittarius.
Yes. There's a big giant black hole there, and it's got a lot of it's sucking things in, and as it does that, it shoots things out, big giant jets, and those big giant jets, they also emit gas, and there are a couple of different kinds of gas that generally come out of there. The researchers say the wind at the center of the Milky Way, yes, the Milky Way emits a wind with mystery gas. The center of the Milky Way has been the topic of plenty of debate since the discovery a decade ago of the so-called Fermi bubbles, which are two giant gas bubbles, orbs of hot gas and cosmic rays that have formed coming out of the center of the Milky Way. And they observed that there's not only hot gas coming from the center of the galaxy, but also cold, dense gas.
What?
Cold, dense gas. Yeah, so they don't know whether the Milky Way has expelled this cold, dense gas or whether it has come from someplace else. It doesn't move around very well, but it's heavier because it's denser, it's heavier, but it's affecting the kinematics, the movement of the dynamics of the flow of this wind out of the center of the Milky Way. And they're hoping that they can figure out where this gas came from. Whether it's really this part of the Milky Way wind or whether it's not, whether it's come from something else. They say it's the first time something like this has been observed in our galaxy. We see these kinds of processes happening in other galaxies, but with external galaxies, you get much more massive black holes. Star formation is higher, and it makes it easier for the galaxy to expel material. And our own galaxy, though, we have to look at it closely to figure out what's going on. What is happening with this mystery gas? You guys don't know what's happening. Nobody knows.
I'm picturing is like these now like weather map of hot and cold, high, low pressure density zone.
Yeah.
I was like maybe that, is it so there's something that keeps a hurricane together, which is all temperature based on sea level temperatures and air temperatures and wind directions and stuff like that. That helps them form and then maintain. Whatever. Maybe we're just maybe all these galaxies are just big hurricanes of matter.
But it's a vacuum in space.
It's not a real vacuum.
Yeah,
it's close to this. Just because there's close to nothing out there.
There's not a lot.
There's not a lot. Exactly.
But apparently there's gas.
There is gas. And what they're trying to see here is that this gas is potentially star-forming gas. And because it's being shot out of the Milky Way through these Milky Way winds, it means that the Milky Way could be losing some of its star-forming potential. So what does that mean about the life cycle of our galaxy, the life cycle of the black hole at the center of the galaxy? What is, how does it all work together toward, as far as what we understand for star formation, galaxy formation, and how these things exist over long periods of time?
Just remember, if there's mystery gas, just say, it was the Milky Way.
It's the Milky Way. It was this.
What was that?
Yes.
Oh, it was the Milky Way.
It wasn't me. It was the Milky Way. Another story of unexplained nature. Researchers were using the. Oh wait, is this? No, I used the wrong links that I'm putting places.
Uh-oh.
Let me see. Researchers were using the Fermi Gamma Ray Space Telescope to look at the black hole at the center of our galaxy and to look at a number of gamma ray producing objects in our galaxy. They looked at one particular supermassive black hole called SS433, which has high tera electron volt energies of spouting out jets of gamma ray power. Yes. They analyzed more than 10 years of giga electron volt gamma ray data from this space telescope. And they saw that there was a life cycle, or I keep saying life cycle in my stories, but really there was a timing to how the jets moved around this black hole. So black holes, like we talked about earlier, they suck stuff in and then they shoot the jets out, and there's a wobble, a precession of these jets. They're spinning around the spinning black hole at the center. And so they are moving in this wobbly fashion. And they found that there was a timing of that wobbliness of about 163 days. And in the timing, they also just happened to notice another object that was kind of off center and about 100 light years away from the black hole binary. And they found that it too was producing gamma rays at exactly the same timing as the precession of the black hole jets.
What?
And so what they think is that there's something coming, like hydrogen gas or the nuclei of the hydrogen ions coming from the jets and the gamma rays that are coming out of the black hole, that are somehow traveling to this other stellar object to produce gamma rays from that object. But it's the timing of the two objects are the same. So they're going to do more investigations, look at magnetic fields, and really try and see what it is they're looking at there and why there's a relationship.
Are we going to find an entangled black hole?
Right? Is that what it is?
That would be pretty amazing.
Is it a wormhole? Incredible. Somebody didn't want to travel 100 light years?
Yeah, and now it's just spitting out over there too. Wow. Yeah. That's good. That's kind of fun. Could just be a coincidence, but
it could be a coincidence also. In the whole universe, the fact that things have the same timing, that could happen. There's probably a high probability of that, but
And if you're just tuning in to monitor once you found this pattern and you're just sort of tuning in to catch it the next time to see if it's there, kind of thing, maybe you just happen to be picking. But I do like the other possibilities way more. Yeah, that's really fascinating.
It's fascinating, and it's like these wonderful mysteries. Why is this happening? We don't know.
Or
they're
also
connected.
kind of like, or there's something else that's triggering both. That the black hole isn't triggering this other. There's something else underlying the universe. Some other dimensional brain crashing, crazy string theory-ish type thing that's affecting both at the same time, irregardless of space between them.
Yeah.
Although interestingly at the same time.
Fascinating questions. We really do not have the answers to at all.
No.
No, we don't. But, more questions equals mo beta for science. That's what science loves.
That'll work.
Yeah, that's the greatest, simultaneous disappointment and, I guess, elation that comes with understanding what science really is it's a lot more asking questions than actually providing answers.
Right. Yeah, a lot of questions and trying to find answers. Not always finding them at all.
Not always.
No. Thank you for listening to TWIS. You're the reason that we're able to do what we do every single week, helping us bring sanity and science to people. This world's crazy and full of misinformation these days. Let's use big words and let's talk intelligently. Let's share that. And with your help, we can do that for more and more people. So please head to twis.org and click on the Patreon link and choose your level of support to help bring more TWIS, more sanity, more science to more people. Justin, what you got?
This is researchers at Stanford University School of Medicine. They discovered a way to regenerate cushion cartilage in joints. This is sort of a slippery, shock-absorbing layer of tissue between joint connection points, like in the knee. It is responsible for many cases of joint pain, arthritis. Afflicts apparently 55 million people who have lost or have degenerated cushion cartilage. This is the suffering from arthritis, inflammation, joint pain, that sort of thing.
And that's one of those things they say when you lose it, it's gone.
Yes, because
you have to get surgery to have it returned, and even then, it's not always successful. Sometimes it's very painful afterwards.
Anybody who's had an ear pierced knows that those holes don't ever really grow closed again.
Well, they do though eventually. But so this is Stanford researchers. They figured out a way to regrow what they're calling articular cartilage by first causing slight injury to the joint tissue. Now, that sounds very much like an existing surgery where they will go in and drill little holes, and because it's the body's skeletal system that has the stem cells that will go in there and add or remove bone, like when you're getting the rubbing from the lack of this cartilage, but also will do repairs to damage that you do. So they go into a joint and they will drill little holes in the bone and through what material is there, and the skeletal stem cells they've already found will go in there and regrow tissue. Now, what they're regrowing is scar tissue. And that scar tissue is not the same as the cushion cartilage. It has not got the elasticity, the cushioning effects. It helps reduce symptoms, but it doesn't last very long. It wears out quickly and doesn't really have that protection. And this is Assistant Professor of Surgery, Charles K.F. Chan, Cordy voice. Cartilage has practically zero regenerative potential in adulthood. So once it's injured or gone, what we can do for patients has been very limited. It's extremely gratifying to find a way to help the body regrow this important tissue. And what they found was these stem cells can be given chemical signals to stir them to do the growth of the actual cartilage that's now missing. The work is published August 17th in the journal Nature Medicine. So that old treatment, which was causing the scar tissue, they didn't exactly know how it worked. When they went in at a different lab and figured out, it's actually the stem cells that would be normally responsible for doing a regeneration or building these structures in the first place that are going in there and creating the scar tissue. That's when Chan and his lab started working on, instead of doing what's called the fibrocartilage, which is that scar tissue, a way to get it to do the correct one, or the one that was more desired, or the original. Basically, they figured it out and it worked. They've gotten this to function. So this is like a pretty major development. There've been also materials you're saying, like surgery or replacement with artificial cartilages. There've been some massive improvements there in recent years. This is one of those things that, like, you know, when you talk about bodies breaking down as we age and over time, this is kind of a big one. You know, we were talking about the speed at which people move or can walk sometimes determines how long they will live. Part of that is, as you age, it becomes more painful to walk. You want to walk less of a time because joints now are rubbing up against each other and it's painful. So people get less exercise just out of avoidance of pain, just avoiding hurting themselves while exercising. So being able to restore cartilage to these joints could actually have a very dramatic impact, not just on reducing symptoms from arthritis and inflammation and that sort of thing, but actually allowing people to engage in more strenuous physical activities, exercise as they age, and then prolong, hopefully, human life in that way. So fantastic findings there out of Stanford.
It's really exciting. I mean, Blair, you must be thrilled at the prospects.
Hook me up with all that cartilage.
Yeah, I'm looking at the story that you posted, Justin, and the last quote: "One idea is to follow a Jiffy Lube model of cartilage replenishment."
Every 3,000 miles.
Every 3,000 miles, you go in for a little oil change.
I mean, like, I run 3 to 5 days a week, and I have to wear a knee brace now. And it would just be so great to be like, oh, superhero powers activate. I can run like I'm 10 years old.
Yeah, and if that can help to reduce the wear and tear on knees in general, on hips in general, oh my goodness. I mean, how many fewer people might have to go in to get their hip joint replaced? Mm-hmm. That is a major surgery. So to
Yeah, that's it. That's
and
a huge
the
one.
hip joints
not have to do that.
They don't always last forever, the hip replacements, especially if they're metal, or there can be all sorts of complications after that.
Actually, the modern day ones apparently have progressed.
They're gotten better.
Pretty darn far. Like you can get a lifelong one that should outlast the life
Some
of your.
of them are.
But the first place you're probably going to see this, my guesstimation is going to be sports medicine. You have aging athletes or injured athletes who, instead of retiring earlier, can maintain a level where they can continue.
Definitely.
Keep going. I want to be an athlete that can continue. I mean, not just the super sports stars, the runners like Blair. You know,
but also the educators who work with toddlers, because when you're shuffling around on your knees all day, I think that's actually the reason that I have knee problems, is because you're down on a kid's level holding an animal and you're shuffling around on your knees on a classroom floor.
Oh, absolutely.
It's punishing.
And I don't mean that just in terms of like the benefit of this would be that we could have our favorite sports athlete players last longer in their careers, but there's so much money behind them maintaining a career, and there's so much the sports industry itself has actually, like, we talk about the good that NASA programs have done for technology. For all of the injuries that happen during major league sports in America, there's a ton of medicine and research and application that takes place that then translates through all physical therapy. We wouldn't have the physical therapy that we have today without our athletes footing huge bills to get those athletes back on there as quickly and healthily as possible. So that's who's going to be able to afford, I think, initially to pay and lend to this research and get that.
Perfect it, get it more widespread.
Yeah.
Yes.
Easier access to the general person. Absolutely.
Yes. That's sort of, I always think of sports as really like, for all the things it does, it's really big benefit to society is, medicine, sports medicine, physical therapy, and that sort of, that's the thing it does the best for society. It's like the cheering, the booing, that all happens, but it's really the sports medicine that benefits everyone.
I know I benefit from some of that sports medicine. This is This Week in Science. Do you want to help TWIS grow? Get a friend to subscribe today. Yeah, tell somebody today about TWIS. Share it. Don't keep it to yourself. Share it. Help us out. Blair, is it time for that part of the show where you talk about the animals?
Sure is.
It is. It's time for Blair's Animal Corner.
With Blair.
She loves our creatures, great and small. Biped, millipede, no pet at all. If you want to hear about animals, she's your girl. Except for giant pandas and squirrels. There's Animal Corner.
What you got, Blair?
I have a story all about bird songs. And I just got back from camping. And one of the lovely things about being out in nature is that you get to hear bird songs. But one of the things that I may never get used to is that some birds start singing very early and very loud. And this study that came out this week from Duke University looks at that. Why do birds sing so loud, so early in the morning? And a new hypothesis is that it actually is a warm-up routine. The morning singing is usually mostly males, and often those songs are meant to impress potential mates and to scare off rivals. And what they found is that the early morning might actually be the best time for them to get the kinks out, to broadcast, to kind of hone their skills before it's showtime. Previous thoughts were that it was actually when the wind was the lowest, so there was less distortion on their sounds, or that the dim light actually makes it impossible to do things like hunt, and so they might as well sing. But this new theory is that it all is about the warm-up. They recorded 11 male swamp sparrows between 2 a.m. and noon for 2 to 3 mornings each. So this is a small sample size. It is one species of bird. So that's kind of my big asterisk here on this story. But what they found was that the song of these swamp sparrows, it's usually a simple trill of up to 5 notes, repeated about 5 to 10 times a second, but that it actually, the trill rate and the vocal range over the course of the morning changed. They started off taking it easy. They sang slower, they had a more limited range, and then they would only start to get that song just right, picking up the tempo, reaching for higher and lower pitch just after dawn, after hundreds of attempts at the song. And the more they warmed up, the better they got. So it might also help get their blood flowing, temperature rising in their throats. All of that kind of stuff helps with the demand of singing as the morning continues. Previous playback by the same research team also showed that a well-sung song compared to a rusty one actually does better with females and is more threatening to eavesdropping males. So a better practiced, a better warmed up song is in fact more effective for these swamp sparrows. So if they have hours to warm up, then their next step now is they want to see what females' responses specifically are to individuals after how long they have been warming up, so that you can see exactly what the advantage is and you know, the percentages and all that kind of stuff. But these very specific trills that they make, where they go high low in rapid fire succession, actually means a precise coordination in the movements of both their beak and their voice box. So it makes sense that a warm-up might be effective to them.
I love the idea that it's not just a warm up, but rehearsal. That they are,
Absolutely. Yeah.
it's me, la 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 la. Okay, I got this.
All
Okay,
clearing their throat.
Which might be
got it.
why
Yeah.
that super early morning bird song is just a little bit more annoying if you're trying
the
to
rest
sleep
of the
in
day.
than the rest of the day, is because they're still working the kinks out. Might be a little shrill.
They're waking it up. They're getting the voice box, those vocal cords warmed up and ready to sing at their peak. I love the idea also. I mean, we know from lots of birdsong studies that there is a pathway within the bird's brain where they compare their performance against a model of what the song is supposed to sound like that's in their head. So when they're baby birds, they listen to adults, their tutor, that basically puts an imprint of that song into their heads that they spend the rest of their lives trying to sound like. It's like, I need to sound like this for the rest of my life. And then they go about practicing and crystallizing their song and getting their song as juveniles. And then as an adult, maybe every morning, it's like, okay, I'm going to sound like that song. Today's going to be the day. And then they warm up trying to match what they think they should sound like in their head with what's actually coming out of their throat.
Yeah. Well, most
Maybe.
human musicians have an idol or an inspiration or someone that they really admire for their style, and that often can inform their music. So pretty similar.
Birds are very similar in that way. Yeah.
Absolutely. And speaking of growing up and learning bird language, would love to
Which
talk
I
about.
want to do.
I want to talk about baby bats learning bat language.
Oh,
Yes.
okay. That's different. What?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this is a study from the Smithsonian Tropical Research Institute, or STRI. They wanted to explore how infant-directed communication in bats might be different and how that might result in specific vocalization changes. They were looking at the greater sac-winged bat, Sacoteryx bilineata, and it's found in Central and South America. It has a large vocal repertoire. It has complex songs and vocalizations for territorial defense and courtship. So, do you know that bats did that? They do. Female choice in mating is very pronounced in this species, so just like the bird songs we were just talking about, which probably led to the complexity of their vocalizations in males in this species. The reason the researchers wanted to look specifically at baby bats and the mothers and their communication is that during their first 3 months of life, these guys start experimenting with what you would consider bat speech. And female and male adult bats respond differently to the babies. They looked at sound recordings of vocal interactions and found that the mother bats interact with pups as they babble, as they're learning the bat language, which could be interpreted as positive feedback to pups during vocal practice.
Yeah.
And then they looked at what they consider the color of voice, which in humans, when we think about baby talk, we think about slow speech, raised pitch, and a change in the color of the voice. It's kind of more sweet or sing-songy. And they found something similar with female bats. Pup-directed vocalizations of adult females presented a different color and pitch than the calls directed towards adults. Male bats also communicated with the pups, but in a way that seemed to transmit the vocal signature of the social group. So the females had this kind of this baby talk, and the males were kind of providing a template, like Kiki was just talking about, something to emulate in the future. So these results suggest that the adult males serve as guidance for the development of group signatures in calls, but that the females give important social feedback during vocal development. So it's kind of this balancing act between the two of them. The males have this consistent talk. This is how our group sounds. And the females kind of lift them up and help get them there by changing the color, the tone, the cadence of the language as they're learning. So this shows that social feedback is important during vocal development in animals besides humans. And that there's a lot more going on there when you think about people that do baby talk with their toddlers or their infants, that there could be evolutionary reasons for that. So, learn a lot from these bats and their baby talk.
Like learning from bats.
Yeah.
I was trying to find examples of baby bat babble that I could play, but I couldn't find any in
I
time.
don't know. I don't know if you'd be able to tell a difference.
High-pitched, high frequency squeaks. Yes.
So this could be a whole new avenue of research amongst any vocally communicating animal.
Whether or not their babies babble and which individuals respond in which ways and how that training takes place. And what is, I mean, especially in social animals.
Mm-hmm.
which
Absolutely.
bats are.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's so cool. I mean, you never really consider, and we have little baby birds that go and they want their food, but they do their little practices and they babble. Little kids babble.
Yeah.
Who else babbles?
There's also lots of different theories when it comes to raising human babies and whether baby talk is good or bad, or if there's a time at which you need to kind of curb it. But this kind of balances that. You have the baby talk that allows for them to grow and change with what they start with, but you also have the constant of another voice that is giving you the adult language from the start. So having both sides might actually be what's beneficial here. You can do baby of course, this has not been tested at all, but this is my extrapolation, is that you could potentially, what this could mean is that baby talk is not such a bad thing with human babies for extended periods of time, as long as they're also hearing normal adult speech.
Yes, because that is what will teach them how to speak.
Right.
Yes, but the baby talk is also neurally stimulating. It is going to stimulate the brain, and it's
right. And it gives
I made
them
a noise,
feedback based
and
on
my
the
mommy's
sounds
making
they're
a noise. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah.
And play classical music and bird songs and bat calls to the kids too. Let them hear it all. Yeah.
They'll be trilingual before they go to kindergarten.
Yeah.
I speak human, bat, and bird.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Do you babble to your babies? Do you babble to your baby bats? Is this not really a tongue twister?
Babbling baby bats? That's definitely a tongue twister.
Blair is babbling baby bats.
Yes.
Yes. All right, everybody. We have come, I believe, to the end of our show. We don't have a question from anyone to answer this week. So if you have questions
We've answered all of the questions?
Science is fixed. We figured it all out. Never mind. Forget about what I said before.
Got to the end.
About questions. We got them all.
I could have missed an email somewhere. I went searching through my email. It's been very busy recently. I did go searching through there, but didn't see anything that had TWIS in the subject line. So if you have questions for us to answer, send me an email, Kirsten@thisweekinscience.com. Put TWIS in the subject line, TWIS questions, to highlight what exactly you want me to want us to do with that email. And we will try to get to it. You can also ask a question on our Facebook page.
I will say I did get an email correcting my pronunciation when I was talking about tuataras last week. That I said the very anglicized Maori when I was talking about native peoples in New Zealand. And it is Maori. Maori is the correct pronunciation. I think I've only ever seen it written. So that was my bad. And I appreciate somebody reaching out and letting me know. Maori.
I think that's important, and to change your pronunciation based on that correction. And I think what's also interesting, there was a study looking at people who have read a lot as kids, that they tend to mispronounce words quite often because they've early on read a lot but not heard the words spoken before. So there's a large literary knowledge, lexicon, but not actual knowledge of how to pronounce the words correctly. So,
I went to a library once, and
that's a thing.
was trying to get a book written by Nietzsche.
Nietzsche?
I'd been reading Nietzsche for years, but I had never talked to anybody. I hadn't been instructed to read it. I hadn't talked to anybody about it. So I was looking for more books by Nietzsche, who's like my favorite author right now.
There you go.
Yeah, I get how we had the same type of thing happen when discussing Denisovans.
Yeah.
Who turns out to be
Denisovans.
pronounced Denisovans. But you don't know until you talk to somebody who knows
does
more.
know.
Or, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you don't know anybody who is smarter than you, you need to find some new friends.
Yeah.
Or make your circle bigger. Find
Or you
somebody
need to ask your current friends what they're experts on, because somebody's smarter than you at something that you know. Guaranteed.
Although I
Guaranteed.
bet you. So here's the thing, though, is that I guarantee that would not have taken place. That going to the library and asking for Nietzsche, where the Nietzsche books are, would not have happened had YouTube existed. Because I could have, watched a lecture by a professor who's talking about Nietzsche, and I would have been like, "Oh, Nietzsche. Oh, okay, now I get it." That's how you say that.
Nietzsche?
Yeah, Nietzsche's also not right, but that's okay.
It's not right.
It's
yeah.
close. It's closer than Nietzsche. Nietzsche makes him sound like a Russian author, which I may have thought he was, but he's a German.
Yeah. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and thank you for listening to the show tonight. I really hope that you enjoyed the show. Time for some shout outs. Thank you to Fada for help with social media and the show notes. Gord, thank you for manning that chat room over there. Identity4, thank you for recording the audio for the show. And I would also like to thank our Patreon sponsors and the Burroughs Welcome Fund for their generous support. Thank you to Donathan Stiles, a.k.a. Don Stylo, John Scioli, Eric Holmes, Flying Out, Guillaume, John Lee, Ben Rothig, Ali Coffin, Maddie Perrin, Gaurav Sharma, Josiah Zahner, Mike Shoemaker, Sarah Forfar, Donald Mundis, Rodney Lewis, Stephen Alberon, John Ratnaswamy, Dave Friedel, Dara Myshak, Stu Pollock, Andrew Swanson, Fred S104, Corinne Benton, Sky Luke, Paul Ronovich, Ben Bignell, Kevin Reardon, Noodles, Jack, Sarah Chavis, Paul, Jason Olds, Brian Carrington, Matt Bass, John Fury, Joshua Fury, Shauna Nina Lamb, Sue Doster, John McKee, Greg Riley, Mark Hessenflode, Gene Tellier, Steve Leisman, Ken Hayes, Howard Tan, Christopher Rappin, Richard, Brendan Minish, Melizond, Johnny Gridley, Richard Porter, Christopher Dreyer, Mark Mazzaros, Artyom, Greg Briggs, John Atwood, Robert, Rudy Garcia, Dave Wilkinson, Matt Sutter, Philip Shane, Kurt Larson, Craig Landon, Mountain Sloth, Jim Derpo, Alex Wilson, Dave Neighbor, Costi Ranke, Matthew Litwin, Eric Knapp, E.O., Kevin Parachan, Aaron Luthen, Steve DeBelk, Bob Calder, Marjorie, Paul Disney, Patrick Pecoraro, Gary S., Ed Dyer, Tony Steele, Ulysses Adkins, Brian Condren, Jason Roberts. Thank you for your support on Patreon. If you're interested in supporting us, you can find information at patreon.com/thisweekinscience, or just click the Patreon link at our website. On next week's show, we will be speaking with Dr. Jeremy Faust about COVID-19 and his paper comparing the 1918 flu to the current pandemic.
And we will be back at the same time on the same channel, despite the fact that my show notes are not able to be seen or working properly right now.
Yeah, you can watch us from twist.org/live, but if you want to listen to us instead, we do a podcast. This is the podcast. Just search for This Week in Science wherever podcasts are found. If you enjoyed the show, get your friends to subscribe to my pronunciation. See, it's gone now. I don't speak English anymore. Moving on.
We can correct you on all your pronunciation.
Found. It's found. And if you want information on the stories you heard, show notes and links are available on our website. That's www.twist.org. And you can sign up for our newsletter, too. Hey, Justin, what are our emails and Twitter handles?
We've got twistminion@gmail.com. That's me.
Him.
Kirsten, at thisweekinscience.org. I don't even know.
.com.
.com. That's Kirsten. And then Blair at Blair's Menagerie.
Well, that's my Twitter.
Oh, that's the Twitter. I see. Without the show notes, I don't know.
BlairBaz at twist.org is me. And then on Twitter, it's at Twist Science, at Dr. Kiki, at Jacksonfly, and at Blair's Menagerie. We love your feedback. If there's a topic you would like us to cover or address, a correction of word pronunciation other than the word fount, because I know I did that one wrong. Let us know. And when you do email us, put TWIS, TWIS, in your subject line. Or what happens, Justin?
Your email will be spam filtered into oblivion.
That's right. We'll be back here next week, and we hope you'll join us again for more great science news. And
if you've learned anything from the show, remember,
it's all in your head.
This week in science. This week in science. This week in science. This week in science, it's the end of the world. So I'm setting up shop, got my banner unfurled. It says the scientist is in, I'm gonna sell my advice. Show them how to stop the robots with a simple device. I'll reverse global warming with a wave of my hand. And all it'll cost you is a couple of grand. 'Cause this week's science is coming your way. So everybody listen to what I say. I use the scientific method for all that it's worth, and I'll broadcast my opinion all over the earth. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 I've got one disclaimer, and it shouldn't be news, that what I say may not represent your views, but I've done the calculations and I've got a plan. If you listen to the science, you may just yet understand that we're not trying to threaten your philosophy. We're just trying to save the world from jeopardy. Jeopardy. And This Week in Science is coming your way. So everybody listen to everything we say, and if you use our method instead of rolling a die, we may rid the world of toxoplasma gondii. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 Got a laundry list of items I want to address, from stopping global hunger to dredging Loch Ness. I'm trying to promote more rational thought, and I'll try to answer any question you've got. But how can I ever see the changes I seek when I can only set up shop 1 hour a week? This Week in Science is coming your way. You better just listen to what we say, and if you've learned anything from the words that we've said, then please just remember it's all in your head. 'Cause it's This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in Science. This Week in Science. This Week in Science. 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 This Week in 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 Science.
And it's the end of the show. It's the after show. It is. Blair had to go walk the dog, so she'll be back. Justin, who knows where Justin goes? Maybe he went to get more coffee because he's in the very early mornings of Denmark time. Thank you for joining us for another show this week. Blair will be right back. They haven't left. They're here. They haven't turned off their computers, so I'm assuming they will be back in a moment. But for now, it's just you and me. We're here together. Yeah, thanks for joining. That was fun. Gorov, are we wobbly? I'm always wobbly. Wibbly wobbly, timey wimey. He should be doing the outro in his sleep for sure. It's kind of funny. Like, I've been hearing these songs for so long, and I know the words, but I can't sing all the words from memory because I've never actually practiced doing that. It's the same thing for the intros and the outros. It's like I know them. They're in my head somewhere, but always having the notes there in front of you, you don't commit them to memory. So having them actually in your brain, indelibly marked, it's a very different situation. Oh, Kira, 1 a.m. in Philly. Yes, early morning. Late night, early morning. We finished a show at 10. And we started a little late, which means the show is under 2 hours. Winner! I'm excited about that one. Just after 7 a.m. in Norway. Oh, we have someone from Norway in the YouTube chat, Justin.
Howdy, Carol. Yeah. I'm in your same time zone, apparently.
Apparently, yes. Velkommen. Right?
Welcome to TWIS.
Velkommen.
Clark, you mentioned earlier, how do I not
10
know
p.m.
the end of the show after 15 years of doing it?
Yeah.
It recently changed. If you're a long-time listener, it changed
It
enough.
hasn't
It's
changed
so
that
confusing.
much. It's all the same information.
still-
Our emails are the same.
Okay. Fair point. But I got like really not because I don't know why my show notes don't survive the length of the show sometimes. It's just no, I'm not working, loading, but it's not working and it's not loading. And I'm like, I closed it, I reopened it, it didn't care. Oh.
That's what's weird. I mean, I could think that it's some kind of a memory issue, maybe. I mean, Google, the browser, historically, the Chrome browser has historically been a huge memory hog. So it's good to close your Chrome on occasion.
But I restarted before the show. Right before the show, I did a full reboot. It's a Chromebook running Chrome, and it's it's just ridiculous. It's Google Drive that the thing is based on. Like, how do you not work? How do you just not work, Chromebook? How is that possible? How do you just?
Know. This is seriously, Kira is saying, my dog ate my show notes.
It was.
It's the computer. My browser ate my show notes. Oopsie.
What type of COVID test did I get? That's a great question. I don't know. Actually, I don't know.
Do they usually tell you? Because they didn't tell me. They were just like, we'll call you.
Yeah, we'll call you. We'll tell you what test it is.
I've got top people.
They didn't tell me what kind of test it was. They just told me I didn't have it.
Good. I'm always pushing buttons, Shubru. It's just one of the things I do in life. Pushing buttons. Nice mask you wore in there, Blair. What superhero was on that? Who is that?
A lot of them. There's there's Captain America.
I see Captain America.
It's like Iron Man's fist.
This is very Marvel.
Thor's hammer.
Thor.
That's I think Thor's fist and hammer. I think that's Black Widow.
Yeah.
And then who's over here?
Not the Scarlet Witch. Black Widow.
And then Iron Man's shoulder, I think, is what's right there. Right there.
So also, I gotta say,
Iron Man's shoulder.
Also very strange. Being in a country that is still open.
Yeah.
From this 7th story balcony, there's a school that I can see with school children playing at recess. At times, there's bars, restaurants. These things are open. They've just instituted face masks for public travel, trains and stuff. And the airport, of course.
Is that new, or is it because they're experiencing an uptick?
So cases here have tripled from like 40 to 120 over the last, I think, 2 weeks.
That's still not a lot.
No, there's no zeros behind that.
That's it.
There's not a K at the back of that. That's just, so they're increasing some of their measures. They did a very hard close very early, and are doing constant available free testing with rapid response, so people know whether or not they should quarantine or seek help, and then can contact friends and loved ones they've been in contact with. And it's just, there's such a big, long, deep-seated rant at the basis of this that makes me angry at the country of my birth.
You're not the only one, Justin. Yeah, I think a bunch of us are. There's a wonderful article in The Atlantic, written by a couple of people. Alexis Madrigal is one of the authors, and he's been doing some of the work that The Atlantic has been doing on their testing tracker the COVID tracker that they came up with. And it's a great article talking about the problems with testing, and then basically what we need to be able to get back to some semblance of normal. But there's a driving, if we can get paper test strips that are cheap, like $1 or $2 each, super cheap. They're not super accurate, but if everybody's getting tested all the time, things are going to be a lot better. And it could be the kind of thing, the story has this scenario of you go to a restaurant, you do a little saliva test strip, wait 15 minutes for your results, and if you are negative, you get to go to dinner and have a mask-free dinner experience. If you're positive, go home. And they have, and same thing, if you're going to go shopping at the mall, you take a little paper test strip. If you're going on an airplane, 15 minutes, you just have to arrive a little bit earlier. Little test strip, 15 minutes, you're allowed in to go to your plane, or you're not. It just would allow more freedom of movement. But what it is basically everybody being tested cheaply and prolifically, just ubiquitous testing where it's all over. And then you could do things like take workplaces or classrooms at schools and do pooled samples, find ways that, you can do more accurate tests, but pool all the samples so that all the kids in a class, you find some safe way for them all to spit in the same container. That container, the results come back 24 hours later, the whole class is clean, or there's a positive result. So now, the whole class has to stay home, but then they do specialized testing on individuals in the class. So it makes the tracking better.
Fun fact about that, they don't have to spit in the same container. They can all spit in individual containers. Those containers all just get tested in one run.
No, that's right. But
the signal.
But what they were, you have to read the article, because the way that they explained it, even with having there are ways to make it cheaper and easier and more accessible. And the people who were these epidemiologists and other experts who they talked to for the article came up with these ideas. So I'm not coming up with the idea completely out of my own brain. But it's a great article.
Lightning Rod wants to know the population of Denmark. It's approximately 6 million people.
Yeah, tested. Carol Ann in YouTube says her son got tested because he felt ill after being with Dutch cousins for a week. Was tested at 11 a.m. and had results that night.
Yeah, the barrier is not actually there. It's this is something that just can't be figured out. Is nonsense. It's absolute nonsense.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The will. It is will. Where there is a will, where there is leadership, there is a way. I just keep wondering if the federal leadership won't take over this and make this work. Could at least the Western States Alliance pool together their resources to pay for this kind of stuff? Could it be, or even, could an entire state do it? Could the state of California on their own, or the state of Oregon? Things need to change so that we can.
Something that was just pointed out to me that I can't help but share. New Zealand and Denmark have both done phenomenally well.
Yeah.
Both have female prime ministers.
Yes.
Yeah, of course.
Most countries that are doing quite well have female leaders.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's a very interesting correlation that had not occurred to me.
Yeah. There's oh. Anyway, yeah, school's coming. But online school is where we're at.
And if we have to do it with Chromebooks, we're doomed.
The
Chromebooks will eat your homework.
That's what it is. It's
apparently.
Chromebooks. That's what they
Also,
have.
Chromebooks don't love Zoom, which at least that's been my experience, is that like Zoom, Google Hangouts, Google Meet, like all these, even StreamYard on mine is fine, but Zoom is extremely glitchy on my Chromebook. And so I have to use like my phone or my work issued iPad or my desktop. I have to use an Apple product because my Chromebook won't work.
I would have had the different because I was able to do remote via a hotspot on a farm in the middle of the North Central Valley of California. I was able to get on Zoom, no problem, but could not join the show.
Oops, sorry.
That was a good funky. You should just drop that.
Sorry.
No, you should just drop that during the show every once in a while. Just like we'll stop and just get funky from it.
So StreamYard, which we're using, it says we're offline. Oh no, I did it wrong. StreamYard, which we're using, they just started allowing accounts at our level to stream to 3 locations. So I was just trying to go to twitch.tv, which we are streaming to for the first time in a very long time. And we're there. We're over on our Twitch channel. We have a Twitch channel, TWIS Science.
I did see that
Twitch.
popping up. That was interesting.
Yeah, so I mean, nobody's chatting.
Oh, there we go.
Just popped over. Oh.
Norway also has a female prime minister.
Yes, Norway has a female.
So now we have
all the
3
women.
countries who are absolutely defeating this pandemic threat to their own nations, and they all have female prime ministers. We should start looking at this a little closer. Maybe there's a reason.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Could be. Yeah, Kira, we are, I guess, going to be on Twitch now, which is great because I had to make a choice because we're on StreamYard and the level subscription for the StreamYard service only did allow us to stream to 2 locations. And I knew that we had people watching us on YouTube, so I stayed with YouTube. But then I decided on Facebook because Facebook was making a big push for video. And so we've been doing Facebook and YouTube. But now they allow 3. And so as of tonight, our Twitch channel, TWIS Science, TWIS Science, TWIS Science is on twitch.tv/TWIS Science. And we're there. Oh, and I see people put in the chat with the Twitch logo. Oh, we get the Twitch chat in here too. Fantastic. So I'm going to try, and hopefully that will continue over on Twitch, and that will be another location where people can find us.
Nice.
We'll see. Yeah, we'll see. It worked. I spent the whole show going, well, it looks like it's on. I don't know if it's working because I'm doing, it is. I really like StreamYard. It's a great service. And there would be some other... Oh, yep. There's people in the chat room over there. Working. It's working. I'm glad you all found it. Share it with your friends. I should try to get on silver.tv and dive.tv, but I can't stream to those places too yet. I have to pay for a higher level of StreamYard service to do that. We will see. Should I push more buttons and
always.
and make more dance music? Poochie, 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 poochie. Oh my gosh, you guys. This I need you all to hear. This you're going to love. Give me one moment to open it up. You have to listen for just a few moments to something that is fantastic. Okay, here it comes. Hold on. It starts. It's Facebook auto start. Here it comes.
I heard about this.
So this song is from this guy Grant Forbes, who his friend took a herpetology class where they recorded a bunch of frog noises, and they were identifying frog noises, and he took the sounds and made a remix out of frog noises, which I absolutely love. There's a YouTube link for it. It's also on Facebook.
That's great.
It's so great. Yeah. It's called This Guy's a Jumper, You Can Tell.
Identity 4. Thanks. I hate it.
I don't think you have to love it. I just think that it's fun, that the whole concept is really neat because you can, take a sample from anything, and the idea that these animals who are making this music to each other, right, for communication purposes, but there are all these different sounds, and that they're able to make all these noises. It's so brilliant. Dave Shorty's asking if there were only frogs, and I think there were two tracks in the mix because the video shows the actual mix. Let's see if I can actually bring it up on big computer so I can show y'all. This guy's a jumper. You can tell.
In the very beginning, initially, I thought this. I kind of got the concept of what it was going to be, but at first, I thought it was a duck. I couldn't tell it was a frog. At first, I thought it was going to be like duck calls getting sampled together. But yeah.
Yeah. So I think there are two tracks that are other than a frog call, but they've got a Pine Barrens tree frog that starts it off.
I thought you were going to say tree fart.
That's my mystery gas. A Scaphiophis hot brookii is the second track. And then there's a couple, a Crate Digger and Chip Tune Lead. So those two tracks are just basic tracks, I think, that are just general stock samples. But then he has Green Tree Frog, Green Tree Frog but Chungus, Spadefoot Echo, Spadefoot left, Spadefoot right, Chonky Spadefoot, Sonorous Spadefoot, which I guess are took the spade foot and made it sound different ways. Yeah, and then what else did they have? Gopher frog, a Hyla andersonii, bullfrog, and Hyla femoralis. So a bunch of different frog sounds, and made a song.
But no toads?
No, just frogs. All frogs.
Come on, they weren't slumming it. No, I'm kidding.
Well, so I got this was about not a year ago, at the beginning of this year. I was doing something not similar, but I was listening to frog and toad song. It must have been the toads then, because I didn't really hear it through these frogs. Some of them have songs that sound very much like bird song. Like some of the sounds were, I couldn't tell if it was bird, frog, or toad. It sounded, or I identified them as bird, even though they were either frog.
Yeah.
Some of them can be pretty elaborate, pretty cool.
Sonorous, even. Yeah.
That is fun.
Yeah, I thought that was a fun find this week. A friend of mine shared. It's pretty awesome remix of frog sounds. What frog sounds are out there, or what nature sounds are out there that you are gonna sample? What are you gonna remix? What can you do?
Well,
Baby bat babbling sounds.
I could definitely get a lot of seagulls from here.
They make a lot of neat noises.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I think people hear a lot of the birds' songs, but and the loud calls, but there are all sorts of other sounds that birds make and animals make, little tiny vocalizations that, because they're not like the big statements, we tend to ignore them.
Yeah, so there's this class I was taking, and one of the assignments was to go out and, after learning a little bit of terminology about how to identify a chirp versus a whistle versus a call versus a whatever, to go out and just listen. To spend 20 minutes and write down as many of the things that you can identify. What was wild about it is, if you haven't paid attention, there's a good chance that there's a lot of this, apparently, especially in the morning, that you can go out and hear. And then
me.
But then I got left with this, and it was like amazing. It's like, I have not like really been noticing how many different types of bird calls I can hear just outside my doorstep. And then I got hit with this sort of dread that now I will always hear it to this attuned level, where it's going to be very distracting, because this is the first time I ever really paid attention, and it's everywhere. And I can hear all these different calls. It's like constantly going on. They're constantly talking. What if now I just can't unhear it? But you can ignore everything.
You can ignore it
Pretty easily. Tune it out.
Yeah.
But go out. It's kind of worth doing. Go out and give a listen. Yeah. There's a lot going on out there.
Oh, Hot Rod, thanks for hosting us on your Twitch channel. That's awesome. Thanks. Yeah, so I don't know what the butt chungus.
What word?
Blair, are you aware of that frog?
No.
Don't know what that was. Maybe it's a song. Maybe it wasn't a frog. That was weird.
I'm gonna go ahead and continue not knowing. Also,
I will continue. We'll keep not knowing there. I don't need to necessarily look that up. That's gonna affect my search history. Oh, Hot Rod, I thought you charge $10 an hour. I thought you would pay us $10. Come on here. Corvid testing. I saw that picture too, Eric. Eric in Alaska. There's a big testing sign in lights that says, with arrows pointing, and there's traffic cones trying to get people going a particular way, and it says Corvid testing.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Awesome. was testing the corvids? That would have been me when I was in graduate school. I might have gotten trolled. It was in the list on that. I'm going to go back and look at it again. It's one of the green tree frog, comma, but chungus.
All right, Latin, you're drunk.
I don't know what that is. It's on the list of tracks for this song of the frogs. So I'm wondering if it's maybe the green tree frog that has been sampled and reprocessed in such a way to be similar to something else that's out there called a chungus. No.
Yeah. Carol, yeah, I love the idea of somebody getting into the front of that line and then having their pet raven with them. I would like to find out how smart he is.
I would like to test my raven. Would you like to test my raven? I hear New Caledonian crows are quite smart, but are they as smart as my raven? Let's test them.
I was just looking back when I was on that podcast where we built the perfect animal. I started talking about New Caledonian crows.
Yeah.
One of the hosts said, "Wait, they're making new crows still?"
What?
Like, oh no.
No.
They're from a place. New Caledonia.
Yeah, the old Caledonian crows.
We've known about them for a while.
For a while. Crows or cephalopods? Who is
smarter, Blair?
smarter?
Ooh, crows.
I think that's a hard one because cephalopods, that's like a big group, right?
Yeah.
And so you probably have really dumb cephalopods, and then maybe you have some really smart species of cephalopods. So I think you need to get more specific because crows, while a big group, is fairly... I mean, that's fairly indicative of a certain type of corvid.
So like I said, I was camping. I just got back yesterday, and there were jays. I think there were still jays, all over our campsite. And for the first day we were there, I was like, "Oh my gosh! Like this little valley we're camping in is full of hawks. Like I have heard so many red-tailed hawks. I've heard so many red-shouldered hawks. I'm very familiar with how they sound." And then,
Isn't it
after
like,
the first day, yeah, so that's the red-tailed hawk.
Yeah.
And then the red-shouldered hawk goes, ah, 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 ah. So anyway, after the first day, day 2, I'm watching a little jay hop around our campsite looking for scraps. And I see its mouth open, and you guessed it, hawk sound came out. And it was...
Oh, that's awesome.
It was kind of muffled the way that they did it, so it sounded like the hawk was far away.
That's cool. What a neat mimic.
So I proceeded to watch the way that they did it, so it sounded like the hawk was far away.
Sorry, sorry. Wait, I'm trying to pause you. What a neat mimic. Sorry.
Oh no,
You're getting very meta there.
Voice.
Getting very meta for a second. Sorry, I'm trying to open windows in different ways.
Yeah. Yeah. So they were mimicking both of them. It was crazy. I was like, are there even any hawks in here? Now I'm like skeptical as to whether there are any hawks at all.
You should be skeptical after hearing that. Maybe there were none.
Jays.
There was just the jay.
I mean, it makes sense. They would do it to make other birds stay away from where they're trying to steal picnic food.
Uh-huh. That's smart.
Other birds, small mammals, stay away. This
Even little
popcorn
sparrows.
and graham crackers, these are mine.
Uh-huh.
Very
That's
clever.
awesome. Yep. Corvids are smart.
Yeah. But while I was there, I also saw gray foxes and heard a lot of raccoons. A lot. There were turkey vultures, good old TVs. I think one of the people I was camping with saw a deer. So we saw a lot of wildlife. It's pretty neat. And there were lots and lots and lots of frogs at night.
Oh, that's wonderful. I just hear so much about how frogs are dying.
Yeah. Well, hopefully they're still there and didn't get burned.
Yeah. Yeah, so you had to run away from the fire.
I did. I left a whole day early. It was last night. We had eaten dinner. The sun was like starting to go down, and then we started getting hit by ash. And then we looked over, and there was like an orange glow in one direction. And then Brian goes, "Didn't the sun set on the other side yesterday?" We're like, "Yeah, you're right. So that's no sunset. That's a fire." And then we went and we talked to some of the parks people, and they're like, "Oh, it won't get here. It's still pretty far away. But the air quality will probably be pretty bad tomorrow."
Yeah,
so
I got
yeah, I don't want to sleep al fresco in the middle of smoke and ash.
I got
let's
pictures sent to me from the city of Davis,
right,
with ash-covered cars. It had been raining ash in that town. So,
yeah. Well, and when we were taking down our tents, the rainfly had a bunch of ash on it. It's like, okay, this is the right call. Well, because besides air quality and all that kind of stuff, I just, these campsites are down a 1-lane road in the middle of nowhere with no service, and I didn't want to get a call to evacuate and then be trying to outrun a fire on a 1-lane windy road down a mountain. It's like, let's just go. This is not a reason to stick. This isn't our home that we're waiting until the last minute to evacuate. We're camping for fun. Time to ditch.
Yeah. Lightning Rod is saying a really big fox grabbed one of my neighbor's cats the other day. Was it a fox or a coyote? Foxes are so small. They're like cat-sized.
Well, unless it was red foxes are probably
red fox is what I'm. No, it's about this.
No, they're definitely bigger than a cat. Red fox is like bigger than Sadie. Red fox is like this big.
Oh.
Yeah, I've worked with them.
They're not that big, are they?
Yes. Yes, they're like this big. Bigger than a corgi, for sure.
Bigger than a bread box.
That's
bigger than a bread box. Gray foxes are smaller. Gray foxes are like cat-sized. But red foxes are pretty big.
Giant fox indeed. Okay. Wow.
I like little foxes. Yeah. I like the little foxes. So that's one of the animals that Kai wants to have. He wants to have all the animals.
Foxes are not friendly to humans.
He has seen YouTube videos of friendly foxes, and he wants one. So there's that.
Rob Sharma, are there any pros to buying a house in California?
Politically speaking, there are.
It's toasty in the summer.
We're in a pretty nice bubble in terms of California.
In San Francisco.
Or in terms of the whole. I'm talking about gubernatorial decisions.
I'm gonna say
insulated by a lot of nonsense.
Yeah, but at the same, it's nicely insulated in the Bay Area. But gosh, in terms of weather, what has it been? 4-5 years now of summer fires where the sky
Davis is like day 10 of triple-digit heat.
Yeah. It's just going to get hotter and hotter and hotter.
Earthquake is only a problem for the really big cities. which is like a lot of the population. But the one thing that California has that the other states don't have is it's California. I mean,
chill attitude.
Yeah, it's you go there for the people and maybe the politics match your weather inclement thing, but education tends to be pretty good in California. The state resources are actually pretty nice. Like there's things like unemployment and healthcare that are basically California's moving in the direction of creating its own universal one-payer system because they're not going to wait for a national or anything. Mm-hmm. Yeah. But housing is a major issue. That's like Justin's big rant slide that I'm going to avoid.
Well, in terms of property on the market, it has gone up 96% in the last month in the Bay Area.
Yeah. Availability.
So-
People have left.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Rental.
the tech
Rental.
industry is like hemorrhaging people because people are just transitioning to full-time work from home. And places like, where was it? Idaho, there's like no available houses to buy because so many
People are
tech
leaving.
people
Mhm.
are leaving and going to like beautiful scenery and just be like, I'm just going to live in this cheap space with beautiful hikes and work remotely. And I can have a giant backyard and all this good stuff. So I don't know.
So here's what's going to happen as these people are moving out, as property values kind of take a dip, as rentals are hard to fill, and people who had been doing investment properties, having maybe 2 or 3 properties and renting some, may decide to sell those properties. Those properties are going to get bought by hard money funds through Wall Street, through probably your company's 401k has probably got a lot of real estate in that mutual fund. Those are going to get purchased and then not sold again, but rented out to Californians infinitum. And we'll as soon as this recovery thing takes place, there'll be more properties in the hands of property managers than there were at the beginning, which actually creates more of a housing crisis than allowing people to own homes at reasonable prices. Yeah, it's we're a target. Housing in California is such a great state. There's so many people. It's been targeted and commoditized as a Wall Street asset and a place for wealthy people to keep their money secured. So as long as that continues, California will be a nightmare in terms of anybody as an individual who wants to own a home.
Mm-hmm. Hooray!
Hooray. Let's think positive thoughts.
Oh, are there? What are those? It's been so long since.
Oh, you're in Denmark, where things are Denmarkish.
Yeah.
I mean, Danish.
That too. Yeah.
It's a lovely morning. Yes, you've had coffee. Look at all these positive thoughts. We can have all sorts of positive thoughts.
Yeah, Carol, you have pretty strict laws in Norway on how many rental properties a person can own or rent. It stops them. So, state of California, this is a couple years ago, tried to pass a law just to count how many people or how many corporate-owned single-family homes that there were. Just to look at it, just to get a bird's eye view of what's going on with our housing market. And they weren't allowed to do the count. They couldn't get the count funded because there was an opposition, a multi-million-dollar opposition to what was just the first step in looking into the problem. Denmark is a very lovely country, as you were saying. I haven't gone out. I've been quarantined for 24 hours. Has it been 48 hours? Something like that. Not been long before I got the test. I'm now allowed to go out and just
go out and mix and mingle with the other humans.
Yeah,
that's exciting.
But first,
it sounds like Carol Ann has had a wonderful life of travel. Left the United States, moved to New Zealand for 15 years. Now in Norway, wonderful places. That's fantastic. Yeah. I would like to travel. Yeah. We will do it. We will travel one day again.
Oh, yeah. I miss our traveling shows. Those were fun days.
I know. Yeah, we could put TWIS stickers. Put TWIS stickers on walls. Just wander around. Put stickers on walls. It's a great idea. Yes. My cat is here purring at my feet, finding things to play with. Oh, you're playing with a pen, huh?
Right, I gotta go. I've got some
silent meow.
I got some spy pools, some rye bread, and some liverstye waiting for me.
Nice.
I understood one of those.
If you were in Norway, you'd have gjetost with your rye bread, with your bread. That is it. Goats. It's a goat milk cheese, orange goat milk cheese. Very interesting sweet flavor. Gjetost. Oh, leverposti, says Carol Ann. Okay.
Yeah, it's actually one of the Danish foods that I like. I don't think the Danes appreciate as much as I do. It's like the leverpostei is sort of like a liverwurst spread kind of a thing.
Mm-hmm.
I love this, and even though it's readily available and can be made, I don't know that. I think it's me and the really old Danes are the only ones who, which makes sense. The only ones who were really into leverpostei. Okay. Say goodnight, Blair.
Good night, Blair. Say good night, Justin.
Can't.
Say good morning, Justin. Say
Good morning,
goodbye,
Justin. Goodbye, Justin.
Say something, Justin.
Good
Good
night.
night, Kiki.
Kiki.
Good night, everyone. Have a wonderful week. Enjoy science in your world. Enjoy these weeks of summer. In the Bay, if you're in the Bay Area, if you're in California, which is burning to the ground, enjoy more time indoors. But stay safe, everyone. Do your best and do your part. Thank you so much for watching us tonight. We will be back next week.
Do it again.